Hello, Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island. Hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the Real Randy Chavez. Today we're going to go over a bunch of stuff having to do with VeVe, OMI, the greater market. With me is one of my co-hosts, Crypto Rain, as we wait for Doctor of Stuff. We'll be going over a lot of the shutdowns that have taken place, whether it's Mutable X, whether it's Draft Kings, why VeVe hasn't hired anyone in a while. In the macro, we have politicians saying they're about to shake up the crypto world, and much, much more. Everyone say hello to Dashi. Hello, Dashi. Crypto Rain, my man. How's it going?
Good. I've been thinking this last week and just watching more people really get shaken to their core. And I try to convey this message a lot that really crypto investing isn't for the weak-hearted. Like it isn't that it's difficult, but it's hard. It's fairly simple what you have to do. I mean, simple is buy low and sell high. The challenge is we're human beings and we have emotions, and people get caught up in this fear, and it really does drive them to irrational decisions. At the time, it seems totally rational, but they're totally emotional decisions. And we're making the decision totally emotionally, and we coded all kinds of logic of, oh yeah, such and such company hasn't done this, and VeVe hasn't done that, and I'm so disappointed, I'm so mad at them. VeVe is crushing it compared to every single one of their competitors, but it's a bear market. What do you expect is supposed to happen? What do you not understand about market cycles? Where market cycles go up in crypto, it's every 4 years. They go up tremendously and then they pull back down. Now, technically, we're still in the early bear market, but it feels still like a bear market. And most altcoins, their prices are still devastated compared to what they will be. And this washes out most people. This is why so few make money in crypto, because they're selling at these prices rather than buying at these prices. And cool, like we have the opportunity here for life-changing money by making smart buys versus emotional sells, but most people can't do it. So it's funny when I go about my daily life, like I'm getting my hair cut or whatever, people ask me what I do. And I thought a long time about like, how do I even answer that question? Like they can't really understand what I do. And I was say I teach mostly men, because most of my audience is men, how to make really risky investment decisions and how to do well at that. And it's not for most people. They just emotionally cannot handle it. It's for the select few that can keep their emotions in check and play the long game, because they will do incredibly well. But the ones who can't take control of their emotions are going to take control of them, and they're going to do really poorly.
Agreed. There was and my friend Vinny used to have this really awesome saying. I don't know if it was his or if it was just passed down to him, but he would always say a couple of things. One is success can be defined in different ways. The way he defined it was how many people are better off because you lived. But that was always great. That always stuck with me. And the other is, if you see somebody that you admire, do what they do, and one day you'll have what they have. This can be a metaphor or analogy for sports. It could be for scholarly achievements, or it could be for economics and finance. Somebody known as the Modern Investor, got about 250,000 subscribers over on YouTube, maybe about 30,000 followers on X, posted a video yesterday talking about the OMI token and how he's doing nothing but buying. Now, this is somebody I found like 4 years ago, just talking about Bitcoin. Always has a really cool podcast, or has a really good, cool stream. So it's not just people within the community that are obviously dollar cost averaging, doing all that. It's people that are kind of outside the community. You have the people that are in the background and the sidelines that you don't really see. Not everybody that has OMI is public. In fact, most of the whales are private. But again, if you don't like me or don't like Ray, don't like whoever, take a look at all the other successful people here. I really like that. Oh, look who we have. Speaking of successful people, we have the man, Doctor of Stuff. Oh yeah. So how you feeling?
Now we got to share the story.
No, I was just joking, man. Yeah. So I was at a family reunion and I was wake surfing, and I had so I don't know if you guys know what wake surfing is, but basically you get pulled up, kind of like wakeboarding initially. You get pulled up, and you kind of pull yourself into the wake of the boat, right? And then you throw the rope in and you just ride the wake. And then, you ride that and you can do tricks. And I started working on trying to learn to do a 360 in the wake, right? But anyways, like I was focused on that process of trying to do the 360 as I was pulling myself in, and I throw the rope and the rope falls off the side of the boat. And I kind of panicked because I was like, oh man, because that rope then can get dragged back out and then like wrap itself around the board or the leg. So then I kind of like, I totally lost all the weight positioning on the board. So then I went over the wake and I just turned up and I was just like frustrated. I was like, And the board shoots out like from under my feet as I fall into the water. And it like shoots up as I go in the water, and it's coming down. I'm coming up and it just goes whack and just cuts my head right open, just like hits the side. And like immediately I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, guys, you got to come back. I'm like, it cut my head. I'm bleeding pretty bad. My poor daughter, who's like 7, just like lost her mind. She was super traumatized. And even still was like, just today, I just got back from San Francisco, literally like 2 minutes ago. And, I said hi to her and things first. And she was like, how's your head? How's your head? But I had to go. I went to the Instacare. I was like, we could do Instacare. I don't want to pay an ER bill. That's so much OMI that I could be buying instead. But anyways, like the ER doctor, the Instacare doctor was like, I think you better go actually to the ER, And I was like, okay. So went to the ER and he stitched me up good. But they had these lidocaine shots because they numbed around.
I love those.
You love those. Those felt like freaking
they take the owies away, right? And they make you feel all numb.
Yeah, they take the owies away, but they hurt you to take the owies away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Each one felt like a pretty severe wasp sting, I was like, oh, yo, what the? But I'm sure it was better than actually like the needles going through my skin and pulling thread. So, yeah, that's the story, fam. But doing okay, and I was at a work conference the last 3 days. I probably had to explain this thing like 50 times because they're like, yo, what happened? And the stitches come out, but like I was just at the work thing at my work conference, and I was like, if they're squeamish people, probably not gonna they're not gonna want to see that. Like, I don't know how people are gonna handle it and stuff. So just kept it wrapped while it's kind of healing. And so once the stitches come out on Friday, then I'll stop the wrapping.
When we're off camera, I want to see the cool scar.
Yeah. No problem.
I can't wait for that.
It just isn't bad anymore. Like the first day, like that picture when it was all swollen, like it was pretty bad. It's a pretty good cut, but yeah. Good time.
Your face doesn't have a lot of extra skin like the rest of your body does. You can like pull it together like that. I don't know how they did that. Yeah, I'd love to see pictures. Anyway, so you mentioned having to go in and tell the story like 50 times. Sorry, we had to make you tell it another time. Whenever I get a bunch of people, thank you. Whenever I get a bunch of people in my inbox asking the same question, I'm like, all right, maybe I should make a video. That was one of the things you wanted to talk about today, the Alex tweet that he had since deleted. It could be interpreted a couple different ways. I'll go and I'll find the actual message. Here it is. It's from a fake account. Somebody that's pretending to be a big fudder, but it's not him, saying, OMI's a heckin' rug pull. And then Alex G had responded, you have no idea, you as in YU. Now, it could be interpreted in a couple of different ways, but I think anyone with a decent thinking brain would be like, oh, he's probably just saying, you have no idea, as in like, you just have no idea, and he just made it fun with the YU. But then you have the fudders and the people that just facetiously and purposely try to create that FUD store and be like, oh, he's confirming it is a rug pull. obviously, we know it's not. He has since deleted that tweet. Anything else you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I love it. You know, I remember the bear market before was just like this. And some of the projects that made me so much money, it went through this exact same period. And there's some people that just, I don't even know what they're doing. Like, why they're acting emotionally like little kids, and they're in the big boy space, big boy and big girl space. And so it's just like, oh goodness, you know, in a year, we're going to see exactly how this investment goes. Like I'm massively in OMI. I bought 35 million more tokens. Cool. I love cheap prices. So I don't know. Could it fail? Yeah. I mean, the sun could not even come up tomorrow. It's possible. I like the odds very much. And I like the team behind it. I mean, I look at the digital collectible space and I see an avenue that in the future, like so many collectibles are going to be digital, and they're going to be 3D, and they're going to be in augmented reality and virtual reality. And VeVe is better positioned for that than anyone. And they're making all the right things and stuff. We're just in a bear market. And so I don't know about other people, but I like cheap prices and then waiting till they're expensive. So it's funny that like people buy and then they just can't stand if it doesn't go up. In fact, they really freak out if it goes down more. And I'm like, well, why don't you just buy more? Oh, I don't know. And nothing's happening and the price isn't going up. And it's like, you're right. It's not the big part of the blow off top of the bull market. So you have longer than you realized you were going to have. And that's a bad thing. I see that as a good thing. Just play out with some patience. Like it might be 3 months from now that we have the blow off top. It might be 18 months from now, probably somewhere between there. And I don't know when. So I want more time to accumulate really good projects and things like OMI. Like as much as it's a hard market and most of our competitors are not surviving, VeVe is doing quite well in a really rough time. Like what don't you see about the actual business operations behind this, crushing it compared to the competition? Man, how do they not get this? If I were to go all in on one project, which I don't do, but if I were to go all in one project, OMI would be that project. But some people don't get that. Some people think I'm wrong on that. Cool. We're going to see who's right on this and who's not. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I like, my thing is this. Two things. I don't know how much Alex was even involved in the OMI token. So for him to comment on it, like he knows a lot, I just don't feel like he does, right? If we're taking the Futter's version of the post, right? But on things like that where it's cryptic, I'm not going to try to interpret it either way. Like if he wants to come out and explain it and say more, then go for it. But again, like we have to take it at face value. If he's no longer working with the team, and he wants to comment and say some things and there's support behind what he's saying, I'll listen to that 100%. I will. Yeah, but if there's not support behind it, then I look at it as more as like, this is like an ex-employee who maybe isn't happy about how things panned out. Like, I don't know. And maybe Alex found a new opportunity. Like, I don't know. And so honestly, like, I'm not going to speculate on that. Again, I try as much as possible. There are times where I'm like, hey, let's speculate. Right. And this can be fun and definitely call that out. But then on things like this, like I'm not willing to speculate unless I know, like I need to know more about things. So what up, Comey fam? No, I love that.
Comey,
yeah,
we are
awesome.
having a good night.
Yeah.
Am I the Black Eyed Peas in 2009? Because tonight's gonna be a good night. I think that's them. Anyway. Speaking of quotes from people, we have Uncle Jeremy, aka Jeremy Pador, going off and saying yesterday something we should also talk about. Dear OMI friends, 5 things we needed to drive OMI. Utility on VeVe. I think when he means on VeVe, I think he just means utility of the token, but we'll go over that. Big exchanges, ease of use, huge daily burns, and timing. Sprint, not a marathon. What he says. Question remains, if VeVe implements 1 through 4 over the next 12 months, I think we will, he's saying, is there still time on the clock for number 5? For timing. I've never sold a single OMI. I've always said diversify and hold no asset other than your personal residence. That's more than 5 to 10% of your total portfolio, especially something that's highly speculative, without fundamentals and completely out of your control. Moreover, I felt compelled to hold. I didn't want to profit when I felt so tied to the community. I wish success for OMI. It was a brilliant idea, and the original timing was phenomenal. The burns were freaking fun. Computing how many months until the entire supply was gone, we were just years away. What a freaking blast. I'm hopeful for the success of the team, but I'm more hopeful for the success of those who stuck it out on the consumer end. Father time is brutal, and in business, father timing is relentless. When OMI to NFT is traded openly, new purchases, secondary market purchases, the trading is extremely obvious. No instructions needed. The asset can be purchased on the largest exchanges, and burns are implemented across the board with many of us originals cheering them on. That's the day we can ask the question of timing. Until 1 through 4 is in play, we'll never know number 5. But like I've always said, sprint. I wish you all success, and if the one learning is diversification, I wish you resilience and many, many more exciting days ahead, taking fun, measured decisions. One of the other things that people were blowing up DMs about was like, this sounds like a goodbye letter. Is Jeremy selling? I have confirmation from Uncle Jeremy, because I knew he wasn't, but just in case he was, I had to shoot him a message and be like, hey, if you're selling, if you're selling OMI, let's do an OTC deal. We'll take a while for you to sell in the open market as liquidity is low. And he says, my bro, I haven't sold any. I was like, I know you hadn't. People were just blowing up my inbox asking. I figured if you had a change of heart, I'd help you offload. And he says, gotcha, you're the best. But obviously he is not. What are your guys' thoughts on that? His entire tweet, his responses?
That's exactly how a seasoned rational investor thinks, right? Like, he's laying out a very logical case for what the future looks like for when the token price is a whole lot higher. So the weird thing is that people have a hard time buying while it's cheap. They kind of want two things to happen at the same time. They want, say, a Coinbase listing. They want all this stuff, burns happening and everything, and still have the cheap price. It doesn't work that way. You have to buy while it's cheap, while you're waiting for those things to happen, because when those things are all implemented, the price goes already sky high and you've missed your chance to buy. And now your only chance is to buy more at high levels, hoping it goes even higher, which gets risky, or sell what you have existing, but too bad you didn't load up way more while it was cheap. And so it's just, I've dealt with investment for like the last 25 years, and I've just noticed as a human condition, so many people want to be able to have, like, see the end, be at the end, but buy at the prices when it was still risky. And it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Rain hit it on the head, right? A seasoned investor. And one of the things he talks about, which I think is important, is that diversification, because he's pointing out the fact that, like, OMI's gone down, it's stayed within this range. It hasn't gone up while other tokens have. And if you're all in on one token like that, the emotional impact is devastating. It's hard for your typical person to withstand that. Like, they just can't do that, And then they end up selling at the bottom. They hold on for so long, and then they're like, I'm out. And it's just like that tweet, right, of that guy who's like, I'm so sick of this. Bitcoin has done nothing. I'm so glad I got out at $2.13, right? And then someone tweeted with that. They snapshotted that and then tweeted out, and they're like, I wonder if this guy is still alive. And then the guy responded and said, I'm alive but dead inside. Right? And look, I'm not comparing OMI to Bitcoin, right? So just stop with that. But it's the principle, right? And it's the same thing like that I said before when people were saying, hey, Jeremy's selling. All I know is this: Warren Buffett, who has pulled some massive moves, right? Like, he started selling like the last few months, right? And everyone's like, what's he doing? Actually, not the last few months. Even like in December, he started offloading pretty big, right? And people were starting to notice this. And then we have this massive hit with the Japanese yen, amongst other things, to be honest. But and he looks like a freaking genius. And what did he say? Like, my favorite quote from him is, the stock market is a mechanism for transferring wealth from the impatient to the patient, right? And I look at that the same. That's just investing, right? Instead of just putting stock market, just put investing, right? Because there's a lot of things, and not every token is going to make it. Like that's true. Just like not every stock makes it, not every company makes it. Even the ones that IPO go belly up, right? And so diversification is key there. But for me, like Rain is saying, like all I'm seeing from VeVe is signs of growth and progress compared to these other companies that are closing their marketplaces, right? That are downsizing, that are doing these things. And I'm saying, look, it might take some time, but like I think at some point, if VeVe is still around and the NFT narrative hits, or there's other narratives that VeVe can fit into, the OMI token could boom. But you've got to make it to that point, right? And a lot of these other companies, they just don't have the funds to make it to that point for their token to reboom. Because one of the things that Danny DeBull talks about a lot, he's like, there's a lot of tokens that just don't make it, they don't surpass their all-time high this second cycle. It's like, well, most of those companies aren't there this second cycle, And then again, those other companies, what are they doing? Are they growing? Are they still succeeding in that space? And so I feel like OMI and Ecomi and VeVe are outliers in this. And so I'm willing to take that risk. And I use that term. It is still a risk, right? Mm-hmm. Please be aware of that. It could go to zero. But when I look at everything, for me, in like where I'm at, I absolutely think that this is a risk worth taking.
Agreed. What you say is true with when talking about Danny the Bull, where he says, oh, most tokens don't ever go past their all-time highs. And when you say it's like, okay, well, yeah, but look at the reasons for that, because most of them aren't around. It's like, okay, why do all of 50% of marriages fail? It's not that half of all the people that get married, their marriages fail. It's that the same people are marrying and divorcing. Like everybody knows people that are on like their third or fourth divorce or whatever. And that's what really brings that average up. If you take a look at going into the details, why certain tokens, like for example, Draft Kings announced last week that they're shutting down their NFT Marketplace. Immutable X has done the same thing. And a lot of this is likely just because of lack of volume. It's just not worth it for these companies to do that. And why does VeVe have that success? I mean, one, they have their IP. I was listening to Disney's earnings call this morning. I do to everyone just in hopes that they mention something, especially because D23 is coming up, that they somehow mention VeVe, or there's somehow VeVe is mentioned in the, there was no such thing today, but when asked multiple times, hey, Disney kind of crushed earnings today. How do they do it? What changed? A lot of it is just, Bob Iger said, is just the big IP. Like that's their major thing that they have and they'll always have, and that's never going to change. They can only add to it. So one of those things is IP for VeVe. They still have a community that spends a lot. I'm not sure what they've done this past week, but at San Diego Comic-Con, they did like 180, 200 grand, give or take. Also, Foster Hill will be coming on in a couple minutes as well.
Nice.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about beta testing, maybe.
I just shot up here.
Whoa, hey.
The past couple minutes.
What is going on, gents? Good to see everyone.
What's going on?
Foster?
Doc, nice to see you in most of your pieces. But,
you know what? The pieces are here, there now. They're just stitched up, a little Frankensteinish today.
I'm glad to hear that you're on the mend at least. That's good. That's good.
Oh man, yeah. We have a.
Randy.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You got to show Truck and Hanks. You got to show Truck and Hanks comment.
Oh, which
very, very bottom.
Very, very bottom.
Very, very bottom.
Grill
him. Grill him. Foster's on. OMI NFT testing.
Yeah. When OMI
OMI to NFT. When OMI to NFT, eh?
So we got the notification. Yeah. We got the notification that it went out. The invites went out yesterday, and people started getting access pretty much right away, right? As soon as they got that invite.
Yeah, I mean the access was live the second we sent out the invitations. It was just about people getting their logins and passwords and everything that they needed in order to test it out. But I think we'll honestly have beta invites going out on a pretty regular basis. I know people are a little bit skeptical just because of they've obviously seen the VeVe Beta and seen, obviously it's been out for a while now. And so people are, a little bit concerned and apprehensive, and understandably so, about kind of the speed at which we're going to send out invites for OMI to NFT. But, I've been using it since we've been alpha testing it kind of internally with the team and working out different kinks and things like that. And so when we released it, we obviously knew that there was going to be issues, right? Which is the whole point of rolling it out in a beta. So, really our first group, we just wanted to we didn't want to invite too many people, because the problem is then you end up getting the same pieces of feedback 20, 30 times, versus just being able to kind of interact with people directly, get their feedback, and understand kind of things that they're testing, doing load testing, different things like that. And then as we're able to see Stacker make the improvements on the issues that they're having, or if there's any issues on our end that we need to address, we can work on those pretty quickly. And then they have a full dev team working on it. And then, of course, we have a lot of resources dedicated to it on our side as well. So changes have been happening. Sometimes people will report things, and within 15 to 20 minutes, things get changed or fixed or whatever. And then we're able to load test it. I think the first day that we were testing it, I think it lasted like 20 minutes before we ran into issues. And then the next day we were able to make it over 4 hours before we ran into any issues. And then they've corrected them, and people have still been testing since. So, huge shout out to our first group for helping us out. I think a lot of people think that, it's this, thing where like now they somehow have, insider knowledge or information, and that it's somehow a benefit to them to being accessed. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. We've limited the amount of IP that are available. There's only a few brands that people can even trade, and really we're asking people to make trades back and forth, under $5. It's not like anyone is suddenly, out there selling, $10,000 collectibles or anything like that. People are really, they're spending their own money to help us test this. And it's been really great to see the community come together and help us out with this, because, a percentage of each transaction burns from the circulating supply. We're in a production environment right now. So every time that they do a trade, they're removing OMI from the circulating supply. So they're actually losing out on money by helping us do this. But we're very appreciative for everyone that's been helping us thus far. And we're really excited to kind of on a regular clip get more and more beta invitations out there. And I think people are going to realize fairly quickly that it's going to be opened up to quite a few people.
So 2 questions with that. You said the dev team's helping out with this. Is this dev team, were they hired specifically for this? Like they're contracting, and once this is over, they're done? Or are they going to continuously do more things?
No, so we have our internal teams helping with it on our side, right? The Akomi and VeVe teams are helping out with it on that side of the house, and then Stacker has an entire dedicated dev team that they have. And I don't want to speak too much to kind of their inner workings, partly because I just don't know, and then beyond that, I don't know what their intentions will be long term. But from my understanding, they're in it for the long haul as well. Obviously, they've created this marketplace. They've recognized that there was a gap in the market and something that needed to be fulfilled when it came to providing utility for the OMI token. So it's been awesome to be able to work alongside them to be able to provide this for the community, and then have a marketplace, a dedicated area that people will be able to go to and actually utilize the OMI token for its intended purpose.
And then the one other thing was, you said that you made sure that there were only a couple of brands that were able to be traded, and that there are others. So if you're in there and you're like, oh, I don't see these particular collectibles, there's a chance that they might over the next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when we put out, we send out obviously an email to everyone that gets into beta, and eventually everyone will see that correspondence when you get access, and you get that awesome email from us saying that you've been added into the beta. And that goes through kind of, we go through everything with people, right? Like all the disclosures, we didn't make people sign NDAs, but at the same time, we are requesting that people don't share information from within the beta, because we just want to make sure that if issues are identified, we're fixing them internally as quickly as possible, and then continuing to work towards having, as much of a polished and finished product as possible for people. And if we start sharing things, then it can delay things, or it can just cause confusion. People will operate with 5 or 10% of the information, and it just becomes more difficult. So we've given kind of a full write-up to everyone that has access to the beta now. So they're aware that, there's been a limited amount of licensors. They're aware that we're on a live chain. So if they go and sell their VeVe Gold logo for 1,000 OMI, the person that they sold it to got a VeVe Gold logo for 1,000 OMI, right? Like these transactions are happening on chain. The collectibles are moving on the VeVe end. So all these things are happening. So that's why we're asking people, like the collectibles that they're generally trading are collectibles that have a floor of, $5 or less on the VeVe Marketplace anyway, so that for whatever reason, even if there was an issue or someone traded something they didn't want to, or whatever the case may be, it's not really a huge issue. But from what I've seen so far with the beta group, because we have dedicated channels that we're speaking to them in on this, they've been very receptive and everyone's been very understanding. I mean, no one, from what I've seen, no one would ever in a million years, hey, you accidentally traded this to me and you shouldn't have. Like, we have a great community, that would get worked out internally and they would just, I'm sure, trade it back. But all the trading has gone well so far. People have been able to make their trades of their collectibles. Like I said, with every beta or with every product that you roll out, there'll of course be issues, but it looks like the Stacker team has been great at being able to respond and address those issues. And then, of course, working closely with the VeVe and OMI teams just to make sure that anything that needs to happen on our side is happening as well. Because, of course, there is a lot of moving parts in anything like this to make sure that it goes off without a hitch.
Sweet.
So I have a couple questions, and you can say that you can't answer. That's fine. But I'm pretty sure I'm looking at things that you've it's already been responded to publicly on X. But these trades are really happening, right? Like, this isn't in some sandbox. The trades are actually happening, and OMI is being burned at this moment in time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So every transaction that occurs is in a production environment, and every transaction removes a percentage from the circulating supply via the buyer's P. Okay.
There we go. I just want to address it because I saw some people being like, oh, nothing's really happening, or this is all mock. And I love that you pointed this out, right? That people basically are spending their own money, they're putting OMI in and doing these transactions and burning some of this right now just to help out. And that's the community. And they're not all mods who are doing this, right? There's actually people from the VeVe community, the OMI community.
There is real people from the community in here right now. And of course, it's a balance, right? Like, I could go out and be like, hey, Jim got an invite and Frank got and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's also understand that we respect people's privacy, right? And if someone wants to disclose the fact that they have access to the beta, that is entirely their prerogative. But at the same time, this is not meant to be a have versus a have not thing. Like, the people that are giving us feedback are, people that have been in the community for a long time, that have supported us. But like I said, that are also using their own money and gain nothing from it, right? Like I said, there's no transactions of low mint collectibles. There's no off app transactions or any of that stuff happening. This is people trading $2 collectibles back and forth to load test it. Are all the smart contracts working effectively? Are all the things on Stacker's side working correctly? Is the API calling correctly? Are there delays anywhere? It's really just making sure the system works correctly. And so as we get comfortable with certain features and functionalities working correctly, we'll start adding in more users on a regular basis, and then we can start to continue to test load functionality, right? You have a collectible listed, 10 people all go to buy it at once. What happens, right? And so we know in the infancy when VeVe would have drops and people would go into the marketplace and stuff, they had issues with that too, right? So it's just identifying, because you can test as much as you want internally, but until it's in a production environment and you actually see how everything is behaving, you never truly know, right? And so sometimes we'll discover things and go, hey, that didn't do that before when we were playing in our sandbox. But that's why we rely on the community, and we really have a absolutely fantastic community with a ton of depth that we can kind of call on to be like, hey, we need help with this, right? And so it's not to gatekeep it, it's not to prevent anyone, it's not because we don't want to share it. I would absolutely love to share all the videos and all the other thing that we're working on, and we'll get to that point, I think, fairly quickly. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're sharing a working and functional product. There's no point in sharing something that doesn't work, because what does it represent, right? So let's put our best foot forward. Let's make sure that it's functioning the way that we'd like to see it work. The community has been waiting for this for a very long time. So we want to give them something that they can be proud of and that they will feel good about not only utilizing for themselves, but sharing with others, right? Like, you guys are all content creators. You don't want to make a video about something that's completely subpar. It's embarrassing for you. It's embarrassing for the brand. So, we've come a long way, and I'm very happy with the progress that we've made thus far. Stacker has done an absolutely phenomenal job with building out this platform, and I'm excited, just not for the features that they've integrated already, but features that will be added in along the road as well, that are just going to be continuous quality of life changes that will make the entire experience of using OMI to NFT feel very seamless. I know a lot of people have concerns with the integration with VeVe and, Stacker is the standalone platform. How is anyone ever going to find out what Stacker is? Like, it makes no sense. Why would I go to a third-party platform? And I think, all of those questions will be answered in due time. And really all that I'm going to say now publicly is that once people see how it rolls out, I think it's going to make a lot of sense to people. And I think that they're going to feel very at ease. I feel like it's not going to feel as removed as I think people fear it might be. And once people kind of see the entire system and how it's been integrated, I think people will enjoy it. And I really hope that people will take advantage and want to use it, because there's no point in building a product that people don't want to use.
I think what you were talking about before was saying like somebody lists a collectible and 10 people go for it will be known as the Electra effect, because everyone loves her. I'm half joking with that. There's another thing that I wanted to go over. Currently, unless it's like a super special mint, you can't really list something or buy something that's like a crazy amount off the floor. Again, unless that's a special mint. Is that going to be the same on the Stacker app because it's third party, or are those rules going to be laxed a little bit?
What do you mean by you can't? Can you say that again? Sorry.
There's been a couple of instances, and maybe it's old, and I haven't heard it in a while, but there's been a few instances where people have said like, I just got like a flag on my account. I just got an email saying I listed this or bought this and it's X amount over market, and now it just got a warning.
Right. No, that's fair. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as we disclosed in the article, like the transactions themselves take place on Stacker, but your collectibles are still on VeVe, right? So if for whatever reason VeVe did not feel comfortable approving that transaction via their API, they could always just cancel the transaction on their end, right? Like you're transacting in the peer-to-peer marketplace, but at the end of the day, the account itself the account doesn't belong to VeVe, but you have an account on VeVe that's connected via Stacker. And if for whatever reason there was concerns with that transaction for whatever reason, they could always look at addressing that at that time. Now, of course, as time goes on, we'll see certain things change, I'm sure, as the market continues to grow and mature. One of the transitions that we're going to see come up, fairly quickly is the self-custody element of OMI, and actually having OMI in your self-custody Stacker wallet. Everyone who signs up for Stacker will be using a wallet called Privy at this point. I know that they're working on integrations with other wallet providers as well, but the main kind of functionality of it and the importance of it, in my opinion, is that it's a self-custody wallet. So what that will mean is that you'll have the keys to all of your OMI tokens, right? So you don't have to worry about, having them on an exchange or having VeVe hold them or any third party for that matter. You will have 100% control of those keys for your crypto. And I know for a lot of people in Web3, and especially over the last couple of years with other things that we've seen, a bit close to home, obviously, with a lot of the US OMI homies and around the world that were affected by Bit4X, having control of your keys is a very important element of crypto. So that's something that is going to be transitioned fairly quickly as well as people start to use Stacker. And they'll see the opportunities to easily bridge their tokens from IMX over to their Stacker wallet on Base. Also have easy ways to integrate their tokens onto layer 2 Base from layer 1. There'll be a ton of options when it comes to accessibility, which of course was one of our key pillars and priorities for 2024 and beyond. So I think as more pieces start to fall into place, all of that's going to start to make sense. And, we'll make one move and someone will go like, I don't really get why they did that, or I don't understand why this has to be the way that it is. But then a couple other pieces come to fruition and they go, oh, you know what? I get it now. Which is actually why I put out that tweet a couple weeks ago where I said they're starting to figure it out. People are saying, I'm getting messages more and more often these days where people are like, oh, I get why you did this now. And that's really rewarding, because we can't always be as transparent as we'd like to be, whether it be because of just internal requirements or whether it be because of regulations or compliance or a host of other factors. But it's fun when people start to see the vision and they understand why we're doing the things that we're doing, and looking at it for the long term.
What else, guys?
So there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about. Foster, when you were talking about, you're not going to see much, but people will kind of see the integration because you got this third party app, right? And all I can point to is kind of like Cryptoys, if people have interacted on Cryptoys, and like they basically have leads out to the outside market. So I would imagine that VeVe is going to have something like that where it's like you can sell an OMI. There's a question here. I don't know if you can address it, where they say on the VeVe website, will you be able to see, even though you can't purchase the collectibles in OMI on the VeVe app, will you be able to see that, like what it's listed at Gems and what it's listed at in OMI, or the only way that you'll see it listed in OMI will be on Stacker I think that's a good question. And I'm just going to give, well, I'll let you, if you can answer that. And if not, you can't, then I'll give my 2 cents on what I think will probably happen and why.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the whole thing is an iterative process, right? And as you kind of hit on with cryptoids, I think the piece that a lot of people miss is that a lot of the licensed digital collectibles platforms in the space have third-party marketplaces, right? Like McFarlane is a third-party marketplace, Cryptoids is a third-party marketplace. Like it's become very commonplace to have a third-party marketplace, right? And a lot of that stems from regulatory and compliance issues, right? And we've seen it with FTX and in other companies that have had issues. Dapper Labs got in trouble with it. IMX has recently made some transitions with their marketplace. Not saying that one's connected at all, but we're starting to see a lot more of these changes happen. And a part of that is just because, you can't have everything, right? You can't be the custody provider of the token and the custody provider of the collectible and the marketplace and the this and the that, right? And we saw it with FTX, right? And Alameda and the way that they commingled funds. And it was like, you're the market maker and you're the exchange and you're the investor and you can't have that anymore, right? The regulators stepped in and they were like, hey, this was an issue. And so this is something that we were always working on anyways. This was a proactive step that we had been taking for a host of reasons, right? And we don't always get into them on social media and stuff, but I mean, on app stores, you can't have crypto, right? Like you can have crypto in the VeVe app. Like we had to disable, or I should say VeVe had to disable years ago, even just being able to view your OMI web wallet in your Apple app, right? Like you couldn't even do that. So, as the regulations have become more clear and kind of what the expectations are around companies, people are creating the frameworks and understanding, hey, this is what we need to do in order to make sure that we're compliant and that we're following the rules. And so having accessibility on third-party marketplaces is important. And it's also important for us to be able to show to anyone who might be paying attention that OMI is a utility token, right? Like OMI is a utility token in the VeVe app for sure, but now it's also a utility token on the Stacker Marketplace, which is a third-party marketplace. It's also a utility token for Tengoku, right? And it's also a third-party marketplace for Epico and all of these things. So as you have more and more of those examples of how your token is a utility token, it makes navigating regulatory concerns a lot easier, which opens a lot of doors for us. So we want to make sure that we're having that kind of very bulletproof and robust plan. So when it comes to being able to display a collectible being sold for OMI on the Stacker Marketplace, I would expect to see that integrated on the VeVe app at some point. Yes, I would expect. Now, will you be able to make the transaction on VeVe? Absolutely not. Right? Like then you would be redirected to Stacker and you would make the transaction on Stacker. But this is one of those things where people are concerned, well, I won't even ever hear about Stacker. Like, what are you talking about? How will I ever find the Stacker platform? Well, if you're using VeVe, you're going to find out about Stacker, right? There will be ways that you will find out about Stacker. And so I think as those become more clear to people and as those connections start to exist and it becomes more seamless and people realize, the integrations, and I mean, you use the same VeVe authentication to log into your Stacker platform to sync with the API on VeVe as you do on VeVe itself, just like you use on VeVe Comics, right? Like this is a full-fledged collaboration with all of the integrations that's required. It's not some, random company off the street that just said, hey, we can integrate this OMI token for you. Like this has been a collaboration that's been in the works for quite a while to make sure that the OMI token has that robust utility and is being used for its intended purpose. So you will see those integrations. Will they be there from day one? Not necessarily, but those are the directions that we're working towards and to make sure that people who want to utilize the OMI market and of course, a lot of VeVe holders and collectors came as OMI holders, right? So they want to be able to utilize that token for that purpose. So making them aware of it so that they don't have to hunt it down and figure out what OMI even is and why it would benefit them is very important.
I appreciate you taking the time to lay out kind of the longer vision. What I try to often help people see is down the road, because we often so get caught up in today's problems. I remember being in the university and Amazon was going through some major problems, meaning they weren't profitable. They were trying to sell all these books. They were doing this online thing and everyone was complaining about Amazon daily and Amazon stock is way down and this company sucks and they're never going to survive. blah, 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 blah. If you look back to that time period, it was a really cheap time to buy Amazon. And they were just daily inundated by the problems of growing a business in a growing field. But those that had vision and looked down the road to where they're going, I think where they're going is where things are going to be. Those people were right, but those people were just a few percentage of people. Most people were so caught up in the day-to-day things and it's not happening fast enough and oh my gosh, it's taking too long, that they just totally washed out. So I'm really excited with what's going on with Stacker. I realize why it's so beneficial that it's on a third-party marketplace rather than a VeVe controlled marketplace. That really, really helps the long term of VeVe and running into problems with regulators. Like, it really lessens that. And the fact that it then has a burn mechanism that should be regulatory compliant gives us what a lot of the initial people really interested in OMI were excited about, which is OMI burns. And so it's continuing along with that. I'm just really pleased on how that's coming together. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm excited to hear that there's going to be people on VeVe will have an easier time getting to Stacker, because right now it's new and it's scary and we hate new and scary. But as those integrations come together, that will be fun so that people can then easily go from VeVe and maybe buy it on Stacker. Maybe it's easier for them to move OMI back and forth, and that becomes more seamless. That is what the future looks like. And for those that have some vision, when all those things are rolled out, don't you think by then OMI is going to be a heck of a lot more expensive? Because if you're waiting for prices to stay cheap until all those things are going to happen, that's just not how investment works. What happens is when it's scary and it seems like it's taking too long and it's so terrible and the price is really cheap. But then as, say, a bull market happens and tons of people flood into crypto, or collectibles go crazy, or people finally wrap on this idea of digital collectibles and OMI's like everything's working seamlessly, well, then the token price is way higher than now. And you won't be able to get those cheap deals. Those cheap deals are for those that are here now, wading through the day-to-day problems and the day-to-day complaints, and still have some long-term vision of where this is going, and have some belief in those behind it that it will come together. I'm excited. I love this type of opportunity, but I'm looking down the road. What is VeVe going to look like in a year as this comes together? What's it going to look like in 5 years? And both of those timeframes are really exciting to me. What it looks like now is actually pretty good, but we are in a crypto bear market.
Absolutely. I think overall, people who have been in the space for a while now, you really understand the importance of a narrative, right? And so when you have the support of a narrative, the world is your oyster. But when you're not the in topic, I think it's very easy to overlook, even, companies or industries that are making big strides. And I think right now, all the narrative and all the rage is about, it's about AI, right? Like AI is the, the buzzword. And if you have anything to do with AI or you try and integrate AI components, people are just super interested in what you're doing. And obviously we saw, back in 2021, the buzz and all the rage was NFTs, right? And so my personal belief when it comes to NFTs in general, as someone who's collected on VeVe for years and who's always enjoyed it, is the overall space did the very few legitimate players a huge disservice, because all of the hype was not around longevity. And, I'm a huge fan of Jeremy Padour. Shout out to him. I know Randy earlier in the stream was talking about a post that Jeremy had made, and I've always very much respected Jeremy and Jazzwares and what he's done. But he's built a company over decades, right? Like Jazzwares was not the company that it is now 25 years ago. And so, he was saying something earlier, and, I agree with him, but I also respectfully have kind of a different perspective as well, where he talks about, a marathon versus a sprint. And so when he says that, and, it's very interesting, Rain, you brought up, the Amazon example. And in 1997, when Jeff Bezos is selling, books out of his garage, where was the sprint there, right? Like where was that, right? Like Amazon didn't become the project that it was until they completely shifted their business model, waited until new technology emerged, started selling something that was completely outside of what their normal scope was. And that's actually when they became successful, right? And so, we look at VeVe, and VeVe is really still very much in its infancy. And I know people get upset when people say that. They're like, we're not early anymore. It's been 4 years. You were early 4 years ago. But realistically, how many people know about VeVe? How many people use VeVe, right? When you're at the Comic-Cons and you're at these events, it's awesome to see that some people come up and they go, oh, I've heard of VeVe, but 9 out of 10 have no idea what it is, right? And that just goes to show that there's still such a potential to permeate just even within the realms of people that would be likely interested in this before you even talking about mass adoption or anything like that. So, it's funny because the teams internally do something called sprints. And I'm not a developer. I don't understand development, right? I communicate information, but they do sprints, and sprints last 2 weeks. And as they work on a sprint, they have a defined set of features or topics or whatever that they're working on. And then they'll work on it over that period of time and they'll complete their sprint. So it's always funny when I hear people say, well, it's a sprint, not a marathon, because we're sprinting all the time, right? But what is your goal? And when you define your goal, right? Like if you say you want VeVe to be a household name, well, that's not a sprint-worthy goal, right? Like that is a marathon, realistically. Right. Now, you may get something like Pokemon Go, which blew up to 500 million users in 3 months, but Pokemon as a brand had already been around since the early 90s before Pokemon Go came out in 2016 and was able to grow, right? Now, collecting has existed for hundreds of years, but digital collecting only really started to exist in 2017 when we saw CryptoPunks or Crypto Kitties, whatever they were called. Yeah. Anyways, Crypto Kitties, right? So like the whole industry is in its infancy. So no one even understands the technology. No one understands the direction that they're attempting to go. So, when we talk about sprints versus marathons, there's features that I would love us to be able to just deliver on in a sprint-like fashion. But I think when you're trying to look at kind of the overall goal that you're looking to accomplish, right? When you're looking to say, I want VeVe to be a household name, and I want OMI to be the utility token that powers the entire ecosystem, it's not as simple as just delivering on one or two things, right? Now, you can deliver on utility for the token. You can deliver on accessibility for the token. You can get IP for VeVe. But until a narrative comes back, until macroeconomic factors start to improve and there's more certainty with regulations and all of these other things, all you can do is continue to build. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is sprint versus marathon, wherever you sit on it. VeVe has and will continue to be one of the few companies that's still here now and is still building regardless of what else is going on outside. There's been companies that have appeared and like a bat out of hell and disappeared 6 months later. There's been companies that have done not really much altogether, but still kind of exist. And then there's companies that have, kind of been in the wings that have been building slowly and are delivering and will likely continue to be successful along with VeVe. But, we've seen ebbs and flows in VeVe. We've seen the user base go up and down. We've seen sentiment go all around and like you're almost on a roller coaster ride. But the one constant remains is that we have a dedicated group of individuals who love and believe in the vision that's been set out. And the vision isn't an overnight vision, but it's people that are willing to put in the work and deliver on the things that the community, who have also been absolute rock stars and supported us on through this journey and continue to support us. And that's what gives us the energy to keep going, right? Because it's a lot of long days, it's a lot of long nights, and there's a lot of things that people expect from us. And there's a lot of things that we want to be able to deliver on. So, I'm still very confident that, the VeVe and Ecomi that you see now will look completely different, like you were saying earlier, Rain, in a year from now. And there's still so many things to be, excited about. Things that we know that are coming, things that haven't been announced yet. And I think that for me is what keeps me going, is that, you would assume in my position that, I know everything. And nothing could be further from the truth. VeVe especially will release things all the time, and I'll be like, oh my God, I had no idea that was coming. That's awesome, right? And so I feel like it brings out that kid in us. It brings out that energy. And we have just constant victories now that we can celebrate. For a long time, it felt like we weren't getting anywhere. We were taking 2 steps forward, or 1 step forward, taking 2 steps back. But now we have actual tangible results that we can speak to. There's real life people that are in the OMI to NFT beta that can say this is a real life thing. And whether it's 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months from now, there'll be even more people in it that get access and can say that it's a real thing. And then as people start to use it, it's going to make it fun again. And when it's fun again, everything else falls into place. So that's my goal, is to bring the fun back, bring the energy back, celebrate the wins, focus on the things that we can do better, and keep heading in the right direction.
Preach. We have been neglecting comments a little bit, so let's get to that. We have 2 from Big A. One of them you'll be able to handle real quick. He's asked, I guess my biggest hang-up is why the extra fee was assessed on the buyer side. He's saying it should be on the seller side because they net benefit, because they're saving on cash out fee. Just tell us why that's not a good idea, and then we'll get to the next one.
Yeah. So in the initial model that existed back in the original OUP, it was actually split between the buyer and seller fee, which, to be honest, I liked as well, right? Like, I thought it was great. You could split it and whatever. The fee was actually a little bit more when it was split between the buyer and seller. The reason that it's buyer only is actually a very straightforward answer. It's because of regulations and compliance. If it was related to the seller fee, then it would be mandatory if you were trying to sell something to pay that fee, and it could cause issues. And if it was going through the company in order to then be removed from circulation, it could also cause issues. Whereas if it's on the buyer side, it's a voluntary fee. You're not under any obligation to buy something you don't already own. So by paying that buyer's fee, you are voluntarily moving your OMI directly from your wallet into the wallet that removes it from circulation. So because you're committing that voluntary action with tokens that you yourself already own, it poses no issue. So there's a lot of stuff like this, right? Like, there's a lot of changes and nuance that I agree as well. Like, unless it's fully explained, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. And, it can be frustrating at times, but the reason for that is like I said, it's just very straightforward. That's the way that it has to be, at least under the framework that exists currently, where we can be 100% confident that we're not going to run into any issues. And we've said it before, and we'll say it again, we're not going to take any unnecessary risks to put this project in a position where people would have anything to worry about. I mean, people are heralding, as an example, XRP, right? The lawsuit getting settled today, it not being classified as a security, but they're paying $125 million in civil penalties, right? Yeah, so, like, ridiculous. Who really won in this scenario, right? Like, I mean, it's great for the whole space, right? But at the same time, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have 125 million laying around where I want to risk that, right? So, yeah, hopefully that answers the question, but it's just being done because that's the way that it needs to be currently.
The other one Big A has.
Hold on, I'm gonna. I'm gonna piggyback off that and get a little bit more into the specifics of the regulation, right? Like, when we're talking about the Howey test, Big A, it's based on the efforts of others, and if again, like Foster was saying, if the VeVe team in any way is taking that OMI and they're burning that could be perceived as, okay, the Comey VeVe team, they are the ones burning the token supply, which then supply and demand would say that in general the token price will go up because there's less supply. And so just to not even get into that arena, you have to have the user themselves initiating the token burn. And so by having it on the buyer side of things, that is completely voluntary, compared to on the seller side, it being mandatory, then being charged that's where based on the efforts of other prong of the Howey test, could come into play. And I say could, like we don't know, right? And again, it's like unfortunately, a lot of these projects, and it's not just like VeVe or Comey, I mean, Coinbase, like exchanges, like so many different projects are like, please tell us like what we can and can't do, and because it's so difficult to run a business and be like, we'd like to do this, but we don't know if we can. And it's not worth like risking tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees to find out that we couldn't do it, and that's what this regulation by enforcement is unacceptable, and it has to stop. We need this clarity so that projects can actually plan ahead and say, hey, this is the plan, and we know that we're safe here. And so to address kind of Chuck and Hank's question about like, does this XRP resolution does that help the Ecomi team in any way? I would say to a certain extent, yes, it does give a little bit more clarity in certain areas. And I say that because, look, it's kind of weird. You have two different judges who said two different things regarding the XRP. But one of them, back in August of last year, basically said that, look, it was a security, like when they were doing the initial raise. However, once it went to the secondary market, basically it's no longer a security, right? And then you had another judge who basically said, no, you can't separate the two. Once a security, always a security. But now that they're resolving that, like, it would have to go up higher. And I think that they have a precedent now to say, at least very strongly, that one judge supported this that way. But it's still a bit murky, but at the end of the day, they're saying it's not a security anymore. And so, like, I think that kind of answers the question a little bit, right? But again, that's for the legal minds to truly vet out there. But I do think it gives some clarity. But what we really need is Congress to get their act together and actually put some regulations in place, some laws into place, that the regulations can be formed by that, and everyone can truly understand in a more clear manner. Because unfortunately, projects like VeVe and Ecomi, like, they are feeling their way out, and they're trying as best as they can to distance themselves. And some of these actions that I think that we're taking with, like, the third-party marketplace, which I know NFT Hero, you're saying you don't like, but, like, look at the Dapper Labs lawsuit. And basically what happened is Dapper Labs went to the judge and said, hey, we'd like you to initiate a motion to dismiss, right? Like, let's not even go to court about this. And the judge basically said, like you control the marketplace, you control the blockchain, you can control the token. And so, like, it is based on the efforts of others. And now that ruling wasn't that it is a security, but basically said, you haven't demonstrated enough to show me that it's not a security, that this is going to go to trial, right? And so because of these things that are coming up, like, companies and teams, including VeVe and Ecomi, are having to be very nimble and be like, well, now we've got some new information. How do we react to this? And what do we have to do? How do we have to adjust? And it's crazy. But okay, so Randy, if you want to go to the next big A question.
Yes, I'm gonna have to find that. Give me a second. It's the other one was, nope, that was the extra fee. Figure it out. Oh, yes, he's asking what the motivation is for someone not already holding the OMI token. So if they don't have OMI, go through 5 steps of buying ETH on a centralized exchange or decentralized exchange, swapping OMI, both will cost, then send to Stacker only to pay more because buyer fee. I think he messed up a couple words there, but I think you get the gist.
Yeah, no, I got the gist of it for sure. So I would say the main motivation for people to utilize OMI, I mean, to be honest, there's already a ton of people that are holding OMI, right? Like, I think that at the very beginning, it will be a market where people that already hold the OMI token will want to utilize it for its intended purpose as a utility token. But when it comes to why would people that don't already hold the token want to use the token? Well, that'll be up to the market, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's a free market and people will decide whether they want to utilize it. But as a perfect example, if there's a collectible that you want to buy and someone's only selling it for OMI, well, then you need OMI in order to buy it, right? Like, maybe they'll want to sell it to you in the VeVe market, and that's entirely their choice and their prerogative, right? But the person that's selling it is going to know that they're going to pay 10% less in a cash out fee in order to sell it in the OMI market versus the VeVe market. So maybe they'll sell it for 5% less than they're selling it on the VeVe market, because they're still going to make more money. You're still going to save money, and everyone's going to win from it, right? So maybe that's one of the reasons, right? And I don't want to speculate too much because I don't want people to feel like I'm saying, hey, you need to go out and buy OMI. At the end of the day, it's entirely your choice. If you see an opportunity and you're holding OMI in your wallet and you're earning rewards seasonally and daily, you're earning your additional NCP points, earning whatever else comes out in the form of rewards for it, whether actual staking comes out at some point or it continues to be soft staking, additional entries into wait lists or different opportunities that can be created from this, there'll be tons of reasons to use the OMI token, right? And so there might be opportunities for different accessories and things that come out that are only OMI accessories, right? And I'm not even just saying VeVeverse related stuff. I'm just saying in general, maybe VeVe drops an accessory line that you need to have OMI in order to acquire, right? There's tons of ways that you can, as a company, incentivize people to want to utilize a utility token. But at the same time, just as a consumer, there's tons of reasons to want to use that utility token. And when it comes to the actual accessibility of the token, it won't be that complicated moving forward, right? Like, our two major pillars of the token for priorities for 2024 were accessibility and utility. And of course, OMI NFT, which, as people have seen now, is rolling out in beta. As I mentioned to people a month or two ago, it was not going to be December 31st priority. And at that point, I was basically alpha testing it, right? Like, I knew it was coming. Like, when I say something, I'm saying it with confidence because I can speak from a place of knowing, right? I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver. I'm going to say things that we can accomplish, and we're going to go out and accomplish them. There's no point in selling you guys the world and then 6 months having to be backpedaling about everything, which is also part of the reason we don't announce a ton of the stuff that we're doing until it's already here, right? Because you can't disappoint someone with something that they didn't know was coming. So that, I'm a big believer of that, and I try and communicate and hint at things where I can, but at the same time, when it comes to providing that information, people find out when it's here, and then they all get to be excited about it, and I get to be excited about it too, right? So it's no surprise that when it comes to accessibility, there'll be different exchange options, which, depending on the exchange, can make it more or less difficult. Right now, in order to get base OMI, you can acquire USDC via fiat in about 3 clicks. If you already have a Coinbase account, it's even easier. And then you can send it to your Stacker wallet in 1 click, and then you can use the swap function with the liquidity pool that we have there with 1 other click and swap into OMI. I've done multiple YouTube videos on it where I did it in real time. The quickest I did it was quicker than the Usain Bolt ran the 200 meter. It really doesn't take that long, right? Now, that's assuming that someone's knowledgeable on how to do it, and I'm not going to assume that everyone has that same knowledge. So part of that is going to be easier onboarding routes, right? Looking at fiat onboarding options, being able to actually buy OMI directly with a credit card on Stacker, right?
That'd be epic.
Might not be a tomorrow feature, but it's something that's being explored, and there's multiple options associated with that. Even if it's, at first you have to buy, let's say, USDC with 1 click, and then you have to 1 click swap into OMI, which makes it 2 click. Sorry guys, no 1 click OMI, but if that's the worst that it is, I think that we'll be okay. And I think people will start to recognize it, and we'll be leaning a lot on the fantastic community that we have. We have a ton of fantastic content creators. 3 of them are here with me right now. And we have a ton more too, right? And all of them have the ability to teach people how to acquire the OMI token, the benefits of having OMI as a utility token, and how to utilize it in the ecosystem. And, there'll be tons of ways that we can look at onboarding people, incentivizing people, rewarding people. It's just an iterative process. So once again, people are seeing OMI NFT right now. And of course, naturally, they're wondering what's next. Fiat onboarding options are next. Being able to bridge your tokens are next. Just different ways to access the token. And then, of course, different ways to utilize the token with OMI NFT and reward and to want to use it rather than just feel like it's another option. If at the end of the day, when all is said and done, if people can't think of any good reason to use OMI over gems, I personally feel like I've failed at my job, right? I want people to want to utilize the OMI token because that's the reason that it's here. So there's obviously some benefits already. You're saving 10% on cash out as a seller. I think that that's a huge one, but there'll be more. And I think people will start to see that as they come out.
Before we get to Randy's next question, we have a pretty easy one for you saying, will Stacker have KYC, which I'm pretty sure they do, and will people who don't have payout right now, if they're in a country that's banned for whatever reason, will they be able to use OMI on Stacker?
Good questions.
Yeah, so people on Stacker will require KYC, at least to my knowledge at this juncture. The main reason for that is that in order to utilize Stacker to transact on VeVe, you need a VeVe account. And in order to transact with a VeVe account, you need to be KYC. So if you're going to sell something with gems on VeVe, you're required to be KYC'd. So if you're looking to sell something on Stacker and your collectible is on VeVe, you'll likely require KYC as well. Buying, I'm not as sure because you don't technically need KYC to buy on VeVe to my knowledge. So it's possible you might be able to buy collectibles on Stacker without KYC. Don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. That will be kind of a VeVe/Stacker/legal decision. Obviously, I'm more so focused on the OMI side, but yeah, you will likely need to KYC at least for the vast majority of it. And then Sorry, was there a second part of the question? I kind of got distracted there for a second.
Just people that don't have cash out right now because
yes.
they're in a banned country for whatever reason, will they still be able to use it?
So one of the best things about OMI to NFT is, once again, the OMI is fully self-custodied, so you fully control what happens with that OMI. So when it's in your wallet, it's yours. No one can take it from you unless you've given someone your seed phrase, or you get phished, or you whatever, right? So those are your tokens. You've completed a transaction. Those tokens are in your wallet. If you want to send them to a ledger or a MetaMask or an exchange or whatever else, you're 100% able to do that. They're your tokens. So there's no cash out fee because they're already in your wallet, and you can do whatever you want with them. Now, if you're in a country that is restricted by VeVe and you're not able to register for an account, then you likely won't be able to use Stacker as a byproduct of that, because once again, you need a VeVe account in order to utilize Stacker, at least right now. So yeah, I'm not 100% on that because, once again, I don't work for VeVe, but just with my understanding of how the systems interact, you would probably not be able to, but that would be the only circumstance that I can think of.
Thank you. Sorry. Well.
Really good question by So Wulo about Bitforex withdrawals. Do you have any information? I know myself and a bunch of my community members have scheduled our Bitforex withdrawals, but they haven't gone through. Do we have any updates from Bitforex on that?
Unfortunately not. I think Bitforex put out a tweet, maybe it was 10 days ago. I'm honestly just guessing on the date at this point, where they were basically saying that they were receiving a ton of withdrawal requests, which doesn't surprise me in the least, and that they were taking additional time to kind of process them, and that they'd release more information when it was available. I don't know anything more than that, but just my own speculation is that they're probably making sure that they're auditing the you-know-what out of all of them to make sure that when they give the tokens away, they're giving them to the correct people, and that the balances that they were supposed to have are balances that they're supposed to have. You know, they're also probably running into a ton of issues with people that had any, leveraged or margin positions open and people being liquidated. And, if they had any tokens confiscated by the Chinese government, to be clear, all of the OMI is still in the hot wallet on Bitforex. But let's say you had USDT or USDC or Ethereum, and that was confiscated by the exchange. They might be trying to work out, well, how do you recuperate that value and whatever. But to my knowledge, everyone that had access to their OMI should be getting it back 1-to-1, not dollar value 1-to-1, but let's say you had 1,000 OMI tokens, you should be getting 1,000 OMI tokens back. But they're probably just working through to make sure that they're crossing all their T's and dotting all their I's, because there's obviously a lot of regulatory pressure on them from the region that they're based out of to make sure that they're doing this correctly. So if we do hear any updates from the exchange, we will of course communicate it on all of our socials to make sure that everyone is aware of it. But as of yet, we have not received any updates. I'll actually circle back to the team and see if David's able to get any information on that we can release as to what the hang up might be, but I haven't heard anything officially from them.
Cool. Appreciate that. I know a lot of my community is interested in that.
Absolutely. It affects I will mention too, because I've had a couple people ask me this that were based out of the US specifically. And I wasn't aware of this at the time, so I'm not based out of the US, but they were saying, hey, we weren't actually supposed to be using Bitforex back in the day out of the US. Now I'm looking to withdraw tokens. Should I do it? Can't give you any legal or financial advice, right, guys? Like, if you have any concerns about that, and maybe Doc has some insight into it, just because he follows up on stuff like that occasionally, but I wouldn't feel comfortable saying like, hey, you should KYC and you should provide them with your information. I don't know whether that would cause any issues so far as the regulations that exist. Ultimately, I think it would fall on the exchange for providing that access, but I'm not a lawyer, so I would hesitate to kind of give any advice as to whether people should do that. I would recommend that you do speak to either a tax attorney or someone about whether you should be doing this and whether it's worth any potential risks that might be associated with doing that in a country that you weren't supposed to have access to.
So I'll throw in my 2 cents, and I'm not an attorney. This isn't legal advice, but I'm just gonna give you an understanding, right? Like, it's not like it's up to the exchanges. It's the law like held to the exchange, right? They can't be selling unregulated securities, right? And so the whole thing is to protect the investor. if you have purchased the tokens already, like the SEC is not going after the individual for owning those tokens. I've never seen that happen. That's all I'm going to say. I have some other tokens on Bitforex, not OMI, that I'm going to be trying to withdraw, but the chances, they've talked, I don't know. There's a lot more OMI there, but I'm going to be personally trying to withdraw, and I do not expect, and we'll see. I maybe I'm wrong on that, but again, when I look at it, the SEC is saying, hey, first of all, the project should be if it's a security, they should be doing that, and if not, they should not be an exchange should not be some unregistered securities, and so it'd be the exchange who potentially could get in trouble. So I don't see on my end, and what I am doing is I'm saying I don't see why the SEC would be like, hey, you shouldn't be. Look, I'm an accredited investor anyways. So some certain things don't apply to me, but they might to other people. But I just can't see why the SEC would go after them when the law is for these exchanges and the security token themselves. If you've been able to purchase something that was an unregistered security, they don't go after you. The whole securities regulations are to protect investors. So if you're the investor purchasing that, I don't see why they would come after you. I really can't think of any scenario in which that would happen. But that's just my take, and I am not an attorney. Like Foster said, please go seek out an actual attorney. I would not say a tax accountant. I would say that they're not going to necessarily know, because they're going to look at the tax implications of that and not the legal implications of that themselves. But that's what I'm doing.
Great.
Yeah, it would be funny if they're like, no, because you're in the US, you can't withdraw tokens that you already bought on our exchange. That doesn't hold water very much. That's oh yeah, the SEC might come after us for letting you withdraw tokens that you had already bought on our exchange. The question was whether they're supposed to be selling them to you, but if they already sold them to you, letting you withdraw your own tokens, that doesn't introduce additional risk to them. There's one of the projects that I was invested in, and they're doing some kind of token migration, which is really a way to raise funds. And then they're like, you know what, we're going to give you the option we're going to buy the tokens back from you if you don't want to go through the migration. It's oh, that's cool. And then they're like, oh, wait, if you're in the US, we're not going to let you participate in the buyback. And it's the SEC to date has not gone after a single company for buying their tokens back from US investors. In fact, oftentimes when they did get mad at a company, that was the penalty they made the company do. So I felt like that was just an excuse they were using, but maybe they had more demand for buying back the tokens. They couldn't afford to buy back all the people who wanted to sell to them, and they had to come up with an excuse. So should you be able to withdraw your OMI from Bitforex if you're in the US? You should. That doesn't mean that won't be used as an excuse if for some reason they find they need one.
I'm going to jump on one other thing back to Big A's question about the selling or buyer sellers on Stacker with OMI. If I am looking to sell something and I want to cash out, I don't mind offering a discount. Let's say it's a 3% discount, right? I'm okay, so maybe the floor on VeVe is 100 gems, right? So I'm I'll list it in OMI for $97, the equivalent there, because even though that's a 3% hit, I still have 7% that I get back because I don't have that 10% cash out fee. So I expect there to actually be some arbitrage there, and we'll see if that happens. But me personally, I am willing to sell at a little bit lower price on Stacker to get that OMI, right? In case I want to cash out and not face that 10% cash out fee. I think that's a scenario that more than likely will play out there. So that's an incentive then for people, because they're okay, well, I just said a 3% discount, right? So then the buyer is even with my 2% fee, I'm still getting it at a gem cheaper than I am on VeVe. So anyways, just something to think about there, and we'll see how that plays out. But
so Foster, the 2 days ago, I think David posted about it yesterday. He said it was great to see VeVe community spreading in Asia and meeting up with some of our team members at ABS Summit in Taipei as the Asian Blockchain Summit We haven't heard a ton from him. Do we know if he was there talking about OMI or if he was just talking about VeVe? Or I haven't seen any video from that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any video of it either, but I will say David has been extremely hard at work curating relationships and partnerships all over the world. The guy has been literally on every continent, it seems, in the last like couple weeks, and every time I'm speaking to him about something or giving him an update, he's in a completely different time zone. I don't know when the guy sleeps. I don't know when he's home, but I can assure everyone he is extremely, extremely hard at work. And of course, now he's heading out to D23 to be there to really celebrate all of that. And I think that's going to be an amazing event. So I don't know the specifics of what he spoke about at the event, but obviously he's looking to spread the gospel that is VeVe and OMI and make as many people aware of it. And I think, I think that the word's starting to get out there, right? I think people are starting to understand what it is that we're looking to accomplish. And he really is incredible at curating different partnerships and getting different people on board. I mean, we've all seen it firsthand with all of the amazing IP that he's been able to secure. And time and time again, I feel like he just kind of sets the bar higher and higher from what we thought was possible. I mean, I remember all back in the day when we would, everyone thought it'd be impossible for Marvel to be on VeVe, right? Like you guys all remember those days and the initial speculation of the fact that it might be coming and to think how far we've come when it comes to all of the IP and the different areas that they've been able to branch out to. Seeing Joseph Parker walking into a ring with a VeVe logo on his waist, and then seeing an actual promotional video from Blackpink, one of the biggest artists in the world, shouting out VeVe is, it really just goes to show that when he puts his mind to something, there's going to be absolutely no limitations to what he can accomplish. It just may not always happen in the time frame that people are hoping that it will. And in this technological day and age, I can't say that I blame them. I think, we have such small attention spans that people are just trying to, we live in a here and now universe, right? Like, God forbid a web page takes more than a quarter of a second to load, and we get anxiety, let alone having to wait, for whatever feature or whatever it's coming out. So he's been doing a fantastic job flying the flag, and he's made it very clear that OMI is a priority for him this year, and I feel like we're showing that, right? And so I think the second half of the year is going to be even more exciting than the first half of the year was. And we kicked it off with some accessibility and working on exchanges, getting on base, and now we're really kind of working on hand in hand with the utility and the things that'll come with Stacker, and it's really nice to see because the collaboration with Stacker is really, it's a collaboration, but it's almost like we now have a dedicated entity that's focused on nothing other than OMI, right? And I mean, obviously it's to transact VeVe collectibles, but just all the ancillary things that are being worked on are all OMI related. And when we have our teams working with them to work on these OMI features in utilities and things like that. So it's really, it needs to be very harmonious. And I know someone asked, and this was, half an hour ago, I don't expect you to scroll back up to it, but they said, how's the relationship with Stacker and the communication with what comes? And, I'm speaking to the Stacker team multiple times a day, every single day. And this was even before the beta was live, giving feedback back and forth, keeping updated about things that are working on, making sure that the APIs and everything that are interacting between the two platforms are functioning correctly, making sure that if there's anything that needs to be done on the VeVe side, that the VeVe guys are taking a look at it. If anything needs to be done on the OMI side, that it's being done. It's really, it's like a multi-tiered collaboration that everyone is, interested in making sure that it's a success. So it's going to be fun. Yeah, that comment there.
It was 40 minutes ago, Foster.
Yeah. Okay. Time flies when you're having fun. I would rate the communication a 9.5 out of 10 because I always believe that there's room for improvement. So if you got to always leave it there.
So Foster, speaking of the OMI, currently right now there is about maybe $500 million over in the liquidity pool on base. If this does take off like we think it will, that is not a lot of liquidity. If somebody wants to go, like, how do you go and prevent there from being a squeeze and people that want to go and purchase OMI because it's X amount of dollars in OMI, how do you prevent it from going haywire?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a part of accessibility, you want to make sure that people are actually able to access it, right? If you can only buy $20 in OMI and anything more than that is going to spike the price 10%, then there's no real point in utilizing the feature, right? So as we kind of explore the fiat onboarding routes and kind of the different options that exist over in that realm, I don't think it's any surprise by now that OMI to NFT is here, but Base is going to be the main layer that all the utility that exists on the platform is going to operate under. I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, even with the Dencon upgrade, gas fees on Ethereum are still expensive. Ethereum layer 1, like they're still, no one wants to spend $10 to do a $2 transaction. What's the point, right? So whereas on Base, it's a fraction of the penny. And one of the great things that Stacker has stepped up and done that I don't think that they've gotten as much credit for as they probably should is that all of the gas that occurs on layer 2 on the Stacker Marketplace is sponsored by the platform. And what that means is that you do not need any other token other than OMI to transact on layer 2. So you don't need a fraction of a penny of Ethereum or USDC to transact. And for those people that don't understand why that's such a big deal, well, imagine trying to figure out how to buy OMI, and now you have to go out and buy another token. And not only do you need to buy another token, but you need to buy Ethereum. So now you go buy $10 worth of Ethereum on layer 1, and then you go to bridge it to layer 2, and it's costing you $12 in gas. Well, now you got to go out and buy more Ethereum, and then you got to bridge it. Then you lose 90% of it to gas, and now it's on layer 2, and then you can use it. Like it's a pain for no reason. So Stacker has really stepped up. Accessibility is a priority for them as well. They want people using their platform, and it was really cool to see them sponsor all the transactions. Now, to be clear, that is specifically layer 2 transactions. That's not layer 1 transactions. So if you're bridging from layer 1 to layer 2, they're not paying your $20 gas cost for you, right? Like you're incurring that cost. But once you're on layer 2 and interacting within the layer 2 ecosystem, everything is effectively gasless because they're covering all of those costs. So that's really cool to see. So we're going to need more liquidity because people are going to be interacting in and out of that ecosystem, whether they're bridging to and from. One of the issues, I don't want to call it an issue, but one of the things to be aware of is that bridging from layer 1 to layer 2 onto Base takes like 3 minutes. Bridging back from layer 2 to layer 1 takes 7 days. And that is also something that we've identified. Now, this is security reasons for the chain. This isn't anything that we have any control over. But we've also identified that as a concern as well. And Stacker's actively working to create their own liquidity pool from layer 2 to layer 1. So that if people want to bridge back, you can bridge back. And instead of having to wait 7 days, you'll have to wait 2 minutes, right? So they're creating a lot of different opportunities for people to be able to seamlessly interact between chains once you're on the chain itself and being able to interact on the ecosystem. But as a part of that, we need to make sure that we have a more robust liquidity pool, and that is one of the things that we're actively working to address. We have a couple other things on the table too that will become, I think, evident fairly soon for people. But it's definitely something that we need to increase, even if it's just on the OMI side, to support any subsequent buy pressure that comes from people wanting to utilize the token on that side. And then, there'll be arbitrage as well too, right? Like people will come in and they'll migrate their token over to Base, and then they'll see an opportunity to, sell into Ethereum or USDC and balance up the pool if it goes too high, or conversely, they'll add to their portfolio on the OMI side when it's low, and then it will kind of naturally balance itself out. But I do anticipate in not too long a period of time that the Base layer 2 pool will likely have more liquidity than any of the exchanges that we're currently on, and it'll probably be the most robust place to interact within the ecosystem, because it's the place that we anticipate the most people interacting with and engaging with the OMI token.
Before we get to our next question, everyone comment #BlazeIt down below, because we have 420 viewers here. This is why VeVe won't hire me. Any questions y'all have?
That's
what else y'all got?
I know I've been like addressing some of the things in the chat. So
I have one real quick.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna sometimes I do this, right, where I get caught up in the chat, because one of the big things I think is important is making sure the community feels like they're being interacted with. And one of the ways we do that is answering it live, but then also like I try to get in the chat, right, and talk to people, interact there. I think that makes it more fun for them. But so forgive me if I missed this part in the discussion. But one of the things that NFT Hero kept talking about, and I know that you kind of touched on like the liquidity pool. I just checked right on Base, and right now like the largest token holder and I could see only had about like 300 and something million. So like, is the plan once OMI to NFT, or like how big is when people are purchasing OMI on Stacker? Where's that coming from? And my answer was that it's coming from the liquidity pool. That's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong on that. But if there's not a ton of tokens in that liquidity pool at the moment, that can cause some issues. So can you address that? Like where the token's coming from? Is that liquidity pool? Is OMI going to be putting a lot more OMI tokens in that liquidity pool to make that? Did you already address that? I apologize, Foster.
No, I didn't address that specifically. So fiat onboarding is obviously not something that we have here currently, but effectively what would likely happen is that you would have a market maker that would be given tokens, presumably from the business development fund. And then they would effectively be able to arbitrage the pool to balance out those tokens that are being purchased. And in opportunities of high liquidity, they would sell into that to recuperate OMI that's being purchased, and vice versa, right? So there would likely be a service fee associated with buying OMI directly with fiat. And that would come from a pool that has designated funds in it that's been created specifically for that purpose. If you bought, let's say, USDC from, MoonPay as an example, right? And then you were looking to swap that token into the OMI token, that would come from the liquidity pool that currently exists. And as a byproduct of that, we want to make sure that that liquidity pool has more OMI in it, and more of the pairing that exists in it as well, so that it's robust on kind of both sides. But conceivably, the likelihood is that there would be more buy pressure, especially at the beginning with people looking to acquire the token to utilize it for the intended utility, than there would be sell pressure. But ensuring that both sides of the liquidity pool are balanced and robust to handle either small or large transactions or regular transactions would be important, right? Like there's no world in which you could go out and buy $10,000 worth of OMI right now in the liquidity pool without affecting it by 5% or more. And we really want to make sure that if people are looking to get into the ecosystem to purchase a collectible that might be that price already, right? That
but
they
Foster,
have that liquidity.
Wasn't there 6 million in OMI changing hands the other day?
Don't even get me started on that, right? Don't even get me started on that.
I love you.
You're
so
going to get me
much.
fired up for the boys here.
Watch my video where I walk through Foster's response to that, right? But then add my own thoughts to it as well. And again, like very disappointed in some of those things. And it's amazing, unfortunately, how much time the OMI team and even just like content creators like ourselves like have to spend addressing these things because people like they unfortunately just take tweets at face value, right? They just read that and they're like, this must be true. And then it gets retweeted. And then it's like, we got to address this and like actually provide like the information and hopefully educate them to, community to where they start to be like, maybe I should. Cause look, and I admitted this, right? When I saw that tweet about the signature being pulled off of the Homer Bart statue, and I lost my mind on Randy's stream, right? Like I lost it. And while I'm still freaking out about it, someone's like, oh, it's back. And I was like, oh man, like reaction. I didn't wait to see what the team, I took that tweet at face value. I learned a very valuable lesson there. So now anytime I see something, even if it's from someone in the community, I'm like, I'm going to wait and see, let me think about this and get the logic side kicking in, right? And then dig into this because I do care. And there are some FUD points that I'm like, I agree with this in that something, and so I have to take that. But yeah, that one in and of itself, just there's so many things that didn't make sense. Yeah. Anyways, we don't have to get into it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate you making that video. And obviously I watched the whole thing and commented afterwards. I appreciated you taking the time to address these things. It's unfortunate that in lieu of having other things to talk about, people will create their own narratives, right? And sometimes even when you have other things to talk about, people will create their own narratives. But especially in times where things aren't always going as well as maybe you'd want them to, those narratives will tend to get attention for nothing other than it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? People are looking for a reason to validate the feelings that they're having, and then you provide them with something that sounds well researched and fancy and whatever, and so you agree with it, right? And I get caught with that all the time on social media, right? Like, I'm a human being. I'll see stuff and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that, because it's a preconceived notion or belief that I have. And then you take a moment, you take a step back, and you're like, oh yeah, that's probably not a real thing. And it's unfortunate because we live in a day and age now where there is so much disinformation on social media, and it's almost become a way that businesses and organizations and political groups and stuff, like, it's how they function is creating these disinformation campaigns, putting out information to create a certain agenda or lead people in a certain direction. And so yeah, it's interesting, and obviously, and just from a human nature perspective for a moment, right? Like, I wasn't tagged in that. I came across it just as I was scrolling through. Like, if it was true, hypothetically, if it was true 100%, like, there was no demand for anyone, like, for me to say anything, right? Like, no one was like, hey, Foster, you need to go and say something. Like, if it was true, like, if it was 100% true and I was like, ooh, this is bad, like, I just wouldn't have said anything, right? But, like, I looked at this for like 2 minutes and I was like, this is a load of hooey. And then then I did some more research on it because I was like, well, what's really going on here? And then I found out, and then I shared it with the community because I was like, well, no, hold on, like, pump the brakes here. If we're going to share information that's whatever, like, let's make sure we have all of our ducks in a row here. This is a significant allegation that we're making right now, right? So, we're not perfect. We're not infallible. We've made mistakes. We've, made missteps and stuff. And I think one of my strengths, if I may, for a moment, is I'm not too proud to admit when I'm wrong. You know what I mean? I've said things before, and people pull up tweets from me from 2021, and they'll be like, but you said this back then. And I'll be like, yeah, I was wrong. You're right. And well, what are you going to do now, right? Like, you've completely disarmed them because it's not an argument. Because if I'm wrong, I'm just going, hey, I'm wrong, right? Like, people are always like, oh, Foster, you make a good lawyer. And I'm like, because I don't take up arguments that I can't win. Like, you don't fight things that you can't win, because what's the point? You're wasting your energy, right? And so, yeah, it was an unfortunate situation, and we see them on social media all the time, and do our best to ignore them. But if I see anything that's picking up any kind of steam or traction, and there's a potential that it could cause concern for people and lead to the yield FUD, I do my best to address it. And Rain may or may not have said something the other day that I maybe had misheard, or someone had told me, and I DM'd him right away, and I was like, hey man, and he was like, oh yeah, this, and I was like, oh okay, cool, just making sure, and it's all good, right? We're human, we say things, we think things, we whatever. It's just the way that it goes. But when certain people have certain intentions that have become clear just based on kind of historical data and sentiment, you address it for as long as you can, and then at some point you just kind of move on and block it out and allow people to make their own kind of their own observations, and you hope that you provide people with the information, and they can do their own research and come up with their own conclusions.
So I sometimes I can't see, like, people's, like, Matthew Lambie, clearly his profile picture is a toy Kang version. I had no idea Slammy was a girl. We don't like talk to these people. This doesn't get to. So anyway, what do the rest of y'all have?
Rain hasn't said anything in a while. I'd love to. I mean, I got some stuff too, but been talking quite a bit. So,
well, I'm really glad. I don't know about everyone else, that Foster's come on and just painted a vision for what's going on. And like, I'm an investor, and investing has to do with a lot of patience, and a lot of people that are new to investing, they haven't learned the patience part of it. Okay, there's a learning curve to anything that you're new at and becoming good. I've been investing for 25 years now, so patience isn't new to me. I was in real estate, and the real estate cycle from top to the very next stop is sometimes 17 to 22 years. The crypto cycle is about 4 years, so it seems like it's forever, but it is only 4 years, and we're 3 years into that. And so I'm excited for what's coming. I'm excited for where VeVe is going. And Foster did a good job painting the vision that he could with where it's going without over-promising. I'm really excited about the future of VeVe. I don't know about like the people who don't get it. I just think maybe like, I don't know what else I could say to them. Probably nothing. Maybe their mind just isn't right. I have found that some people don't have what's called the golden vision. And I often tell this story about real estate investing. And I was with this guy, and he had the option to buy this land for $30,000, him and his family. And it was like 20 acres, and it was like dirt roads back then, but you could tell this was probably going to be a future intersection. The city map had the roads painted out that down the road, way down the road, this is going to be a major intersection. And they could have bought it for $30,000, nothing down, like no interest, and just make payments over like 20 years. And they turned it down because there was nothing there. Well, then at the time they were building a Walmart on it and Panda Express and everything. And so far on the pieces they had sold, they'd made like $15 million. And he's like, oh man, I had the option to buy that. And I can't believe it, we'd be so rich. And I said, why didn't you buy it? And he said, well, there was nothing there. I said, did you know that the roads were probably going to be there? Oh yeah, we knew that. Well, why didn't you buy it? I mean, no interest. Oh yeah, family friend, and there was nothing there. And I was like, he's like, but I should really invest in real estate. And I was like, yeah, you might consider it. Like, I could help you go about 4 miles north where there's nothing but roads kind of cut in, but you can tell which ones are going to be the major intersection. I could help you get about 5, maybe 10 acres if you're lucky for about 30K, maybe 50K. And he said, yeah, but there's nothing there. I was like, what don't you get about this situation? The price is really cheap when there's a lot of things that haven't happened and rolled out yet. But by the time they happen and roll out, the price is no longer cheap. And so then you're buying high, hoping it goes higher if you can even afford to still buy it. But like, how does he not get it? And then I realized some people just don't get it. Okay, cool. Investing's not right for them. Cool. VeVe is a great place to be. Just collect. But for those that don't have patience and kind of the ability to say, gosh, it looks like it's coming together this way. That's what investing takes. And investing can be very lucrative if you're good at those skills, and disastrous if you're not.
Preach. We are all, so Foster, me, Rain, and Doc are all going to New York Comic Con because we had a blast at San Diego. There was people there at the house from 9:30 in the morning until 5:30 in the morning every day. It was amazing. Will you partake in the New York Comic Con festivities?
I'm definitely leaning towards it. Yeah, I think at this point it's definitely on the cards unless something kind of comes up that's out of my control. That's the direction that I'm definitely leaning towards. I mean, I've been to NYCC the last 2 years in a row, and this will be obviously the first one where I kind of have any formal involvement with the team. But it's just like, to anyone that's watching this right now, if you've never had an opportunity to go to one of these events, it's such an eye-opening experience. I mean, take the money out of it, just the people, like just being able to spend time with like-minded people. And it's really amazing, having had the opportunity to meet these guys before and stuff, like they're the same people on the internet that they are in person. You know what I mean? And so it's so cool to be able to meet people that you've seen on the other end of a screen so much, and then just be able to have actual conversations with them and see how excited they are and passionate they are, and share stories and everything associated with it. It was definitely a completely eye-opening experience for me, and I definitely would say the cons that I've been to over the last couple of years have been definitely the highlight moments for me in this community. So yeah, unless something crazy happens, I will definitely be there, because it's a celebration, and never want to miss out on that. So
that was like my favorite compliment where somebody said, Randy, you're like the same in real life as you are in your videos. Like, well, I don't think I could fake this for like 4 years. I think maybe I could fake a personality for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But
No,
that was
I
it.
just loved that when I met you for the first time, like it felt like we already knew each other. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't one of these like weird, like now we're just standing around each other awkwardly on our phones for 10 minutes, like whatever. It was just like, oh, hey, best friend. And you're like, hey, best friend. Like it just, and just walking around. And I think one of the highlights for me, and it was funny because it wasn't even like it had nothing to do with me, right? Like, so I'll paint the picture, guys. We're in New York, walking down the road. I'm with Randy, my buddy Mike, and we had a couple other people there with us.
That's what we were eating.
You were chowing down on some street meat. You just had your face absolutely macked on, I don't remember what it was, but you were just chewing down in your tank top, just walking in the area of Times Square. And like literally just the worst face that you could be making. And someone just out of nowhere, they goes, are you Randy Chavez? And he's like, huh? Looks at him, he's like, yeah. He's like, I watch your videos. And like, we're in the middle of Times Square right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like this, such a fast place. There's so much. He was like, yeah. Like, you want to come hang out with us? He was like, sure. And like, I forget his name, but he was going to hang out with his buddies for a birthday party. And he was like, okay, bye guys. I'm going to go hang out with these guys. And they're probably like, what is this guy doing? Like, we're going out to a birthday party.
Yeah,
and he hung out with us.
Student.
Yeah. He hung out with us the whole night. And it was so cool. It was absolutely so cool. So it was just to see that Randy got recognized by someone like in the middle of Times Square and stuff. It was just such a cool, like, I was just having like, it was like a fandom moment for me, like it's an out of body experience. I was like, oh my God, like that's so cool. So that always stuck with me. And being in the taxi, the pedal taxi, whatever they're called. And us
yeah, playing Avril Lavigne.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, for sure.
I just got the I just downloaded it. I don't know where. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's the photo. From left to right, it's you, it's a Mark Sajay, it's the your buddy, our new friend, and then me.
Nice.
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago, like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good times, man. Good times for sure. Yeah.
Can't wait to go meet everyone. Dr. Stuff will be RB. Possibly better be there. People tend to like to hang out. You should have like because you actually work for the team. You should have like a card, and just be like, okay, we're gonna have schedule a time to come hang and ask questions between 3:30 and 4, and then you could charge.
Just call it Alpha Hour. I wouldn't charge for it. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Like, could you imagine? That's a good way to get fired. No, won't do that. But no, I mean, hanging out with the fam and like, you know, we tend to be a little more loose lipped just because you're so excited about it, right? Like it's easy to contain on the internet, but when you're in like your IRL and everyone's excited and whatever, I mean, people always wonder like why David has such a hard time keeping things to himself. And it's just like, can you blame the guy? Like, he's just so passionate. He's so excited about stuff. Like, you get him in a group full of like-minded people who just love what he's built and see the same vision. I mean, it's, yeah, the guy just can't help himself. And I absolutely don't blame him. It's, it's surreal to be in those environments. And just being at Comic-Con and stuff too. It's just, it's so unlike anything you've ever done. Like, if you've never been to a Comic-Con and you've never been in a venue with like 50, 60,000 people just walking around. A lot of them are in, you know, cosplaying different things and stuff. It's it's so cool. Like when I flew out last year to New York, I ran into a guy at my local airport who was dressing up as Iron Man, and he had like a full suit, like a full suit. I ended up getting like his business card and stuff, and he ended up coming to our the launch party at NYCC for the Marvel Funko, like and it just so happened to work out that way. He just came in his full Marvel suit and stuff, and it was absolutely so cool. It's just so fun to see people, and like you can relate to the fandom because you're always going to find someone who loves something that's on VeVe. So
we are getting near that 2 hour mark. You guys have anything left you want to go over? Also, it'd be nice to let everyone off camera for a minute if you guys have the time.
Yeah, I was just laughing at Omicron's.
Talking about it.
I'm like the special needs guy, right? Just fragile guys, like help me out.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to say though that was so crazy, when I was at San Diego Comic-Con, is watching how hard David was working. He was everywhere, right? Like he was at the different booths with the VeVe collaborations, and it was funny because he stopped by DC's booth, right? And I had just seen David over at the VeVe booth, I don't know, 10 minutes beforehand, and I was like, David, like, are you following me? This is kind of awkward, you know? and he was like, no, like he was so in the zone, like he didn't even get my sarcasm, right? Like he was like, no, like I'm here to talk. But like even at the community led VeVe party, like afterwards, David was talking to another person, pitching on, like trying to bring them on to VeVe, like during a party where he should be finally relaxing after the day. He's pitching someone else. Like the guy works extremely hard. Like it's so impressive, and that's one of the things that I'm banking on. Now, there's a lot that has to go in. You can't just, there's more than just the IP, but that is a big part of it for sure. And the fact that he's continuing to do that, and if he sees an opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's at an event where he should be relaxing, or he could say, look, like, you know what, I put in 16 hours already, like I just need to chill. And instead he's out there like talking to someone else and just like explaining it to him. It was amazing to see him work, and that was so like I don't know, it just made me feel good about my decision so far, as to like, look, like I just see that like he hasn't rested on his laurels, right? Like this team continues to build, and they're continuing to look, because they know that there's so much more. Like we are nowhere near any sort of mass adoption of digital collectibles, even though I foresee that in the future. I don't know how long of a road that's going to be, but like the fact that I see someone like David with what he's built so far, and he's continuing to push that and just get more and more people on board, I love it. So, but yes, hair restoration. Well, if I did hair restoration, they didn't do it right. You know, I mean, like maybe I went down to South America instead of Turkey or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Have you seen that guy? He was some like foreign cop, like Venezuelan police, whatever. He just had the top, like this part of his hair, and it was dangling down, so it looked like a barcode. Like he shaved everything else. It was the greatest thing I've ever seen.
That's amazing.
Such an alpha haircut. Okay, that'll be it. Before we take a bounce, Metaverse Life had posted, after a week in the hospital, I'm finally home recovering. Gallbladder removal got complicated, so it'll be a month of recovery. Send movie and TV recommendations on his posts, not via DM. You'll take over his DMs. Also, the circumstance in season 2 of Collectors at Heart will be delayed, but let's just all go to his post and give him a get better soon. Final thoughts?
I've already shared mine.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
I kind of think I did too.
I'm good.
I just want to thank everyone for all of the support. I know I echo it time and time again, but I really do genuinely mean it. None of us would be in the position that we are. None of these guys would have anything to talk about. I certainly wouldn't have anything to talk about. And I wouldn't have any motivation to do it if it wasn't for this amazing community that we have that has always been so incredibly supportive through kind of all of the ups and downs. And I know that it hasn't been an easy journey, and it certainly hasn't been a short journey, but it's been incredible. And it starts from the top down. I would never have taken on this role and wanted to have any interest in it if it wasn't for the passion and dedication that starts from the very top with David and Dan and the rest of the executive team, and all the way down to the community, right? Like everyone plays a role. Everyone has the opportunity to give their 2 cents, add in their feedback, and make this project better day by day. So shout out to all the beta testers that are helping us thus far. If you haven't been invited to the beta yet, don't fret, because we will be sending out beta invitations regularly. So all of you guys will be able to check out the OMI NFT Beta and give us the feedback and let us know what you think about it. And yeah, thanks to you guys for always flying the flag. I genuinely appreciate it. You spent 2 hours out of your night tonight doing this, and you absolutely didn't have to. So, you know, you guys host these roundtables regularly, and I try and jump into them where I can, but you guys are absolutely incredible. And thank you for always supporting us and flying the flag when I'm not around to do it. I really do appreciate all you guys, and I consider all you guys friends. And so Thank you guys,
Thanks.
and thank you to everyone in the chat as well.
Thanks, Foster. Thanks for
Love you,
joining.
Bays. All right, let's get this bread. Bye bye. Everyone say bye to Dashi. Bye bye.